Moving on to our D zone stuff. The first thing I wanted to start off with, we did this before, but I want you to start going over your quadrant thing, talking about defensive zone coverage in general. Um, unless you have anything else you want to say before we
Well,
start.
I think maybe before that, I think just a philosophy on defensive play. So I think, I mean, when you get to the highest levels, if you're not a good defensive player, then you're probably not going to play a whole lot, unless you are the one that really small percentage of players that can just kind of cheat the game a little bit, or because they're there to score goals, so they might get away with a little bit. But for the most part, if someone's listening to this, it's most likely this applies to you, that you got to be a good defensive player. And then the question is, what is defensive? What does that mean? So a lot of defensive play is what you do without the puck, right? It's patience and all that kind of stuff. But I think more importantly than that even is that you take pride in it, because there's not necessarily a lot of recognition from the average person on good defensive play. But the people that matter, like the people that maybe give you your ice time, or people that, if you're looking at moving on, people that scout, the people that evaluate you, understand it. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they understand what system you're playing, but they see the effort. So they see that there's a big effort that you don't want to get scored on. And when I talk to players, a lot of the times when we do an offensive drill, like getting to the net and stuff, like sometimes that's a problem too. But like you know what I mean. Like if you go in the offensive zone, guys seem to be a little bit more hungry, whereas in the defensive zone is like something that they're supposed to do, and if they don't, it's
Yeah,
you know
they have to do it. It's not
they
that they
have to
get
do it,
to or whatever.
like
Yeah,
back checking, and when you have opportunities to be really good defensively, it's like the effort. If you say the forecheck is at 100%, the D zone might be 50% or 70%, which is not good enough. So I would say to players that if you want to win over scouts and coaches and do things that stand out more than other people, is that to be very good defensively. Like really, really, really have effort in your defensive zone, and that helps your team, and it helps yourself. So, and it's a mindset. And again, like I said, it's not something that a lot of people, the average mom and dad, don't really look at. Um, a really nice, not even a really nice defensive play, a simple defensive play, right? So that's a mindset that I would like people to really value, is to be a really hardworking defensive player. And then what happens is, when you're a very good defensive player, your coaches trust you, people that watch the game, that understand the game, that evaluate you, like that part. But you also create offense from it. So that's really important to me. So I just really encourage people not to minimize the importance of defensive zone play. And I get it. There's not a whole lot of people that are going to write an article about how good someone is in the D zone. They'll show a highlight of a goal or a really good offensive play, but your average defensive zone play is not really talked about that much. Although the other night there was a player I was watching, and he got a nice goal. It was a really nice goal. And I told him after, I said, what I really liked was my favorite part of that game. And he goes, I know. I go, well, go ahead, tell me. He goes, it's the back check. I said, yeah, you had one of the best guys in the league going on a 2-on-1, and you busted your ass back, and you're down in the far corner, busted your ass back and knocked a puck away from him. And I think people notice that, but they don't maybe necessarily. Some people don't notice the significance of how hard that was and how big of a play that is, because it could have been in the back of the net, and it could have been very easily to come back kind of hard and kind of maybe glide a little bit, saying, I'm not sure if I'm going to get him, but you put the effort in to do it. And so if you take a game, and if everything's equal, and if someone's really watching, evaluating for a player, what do I like about a player? That play stands out big time. So you do that once, twice a game. That's as big as scoring a goal. Because now someone evaluating goes, this guy cares at this end of the ice too, which is critical.
yeah. The only thing I'll add to that is it's one way to frame it, because everyone understands what it feels like to want to score. but it's trying to adopt the feeling of not of wanting to not get scored on. That's a way to frame it in your head. Instead of just, oh, you got to be good in your D zone. It's like, do not let the other team score, which that sounds obvious. But if you haven't ever articulated that in your mindset, like, I will not get scored on, because I don't ever remember thinking that when I was playing youth hockey. And it would have been good to have that, and not as a first thought. But instead of just being like, okay, I need to cover my D, or I need to help my defenseman in the corner. Like, yeah, you want that, but it's why? It's we're not getting scored on. I'm gonna not get scored on, and caring about that will give you a little bit more sense of urgency in your own D zone, which is great. And then the other thing about mentioning the back check type stuff, that defensive zone play, for anyone who's ever been on a bench, like on a team on the bench, and maybe for parents listening, if you haven't been in the situation, you don't know what it feels like when you have a guy that has a big shot block, or has a really great back check, or some type of phenomenal defense, like grinding the puck on the wall where they eat it for 15 seconds on their own with two guys battling against them. Like, these kind of big defensive plays energize the team, maybe not as much as a goal, but it gives a significant boost to the boys on the bench. So that's another thing as a player, and as a coach you feel that too, but as a player especially, it's like you should know what it feels like when you're on the bench and you watch a guy have a great defensive effort, what that does to the team, just as much as what it does when you score a goal. When you score a goal, it boosts guys, but when there's a really hard defensive play, that gives guys on your team a big boost too. And real hockey people that are scouting or coaches or whatever, they know that. And that's why, to your point of, if you want to stand out, you want to get people to notice you, that defensive stuff that often goes unnoticed by the general population or isn't as valued, the team values it. And you can feel that when it happens in a game. Because I feel like, honestly, the biggest moments in a game for a team are probably scoring a goal, not even all the time, but scoring a goal in a certain context would be number one. Second, I think, would be that big defensive play. And then third would be like a fight or a big hit or something like that. Like, that's probably the order of momentum as it for certain teams, or for most teams, depending on like the circumstance, obviously. But in general, it's right up there. So if that's something that you can adopt in your game, you can bring a lot of value to your team, the guys on your team, by bringing that energy or bringing that momentum shifter through a play that seems like nobody would really care, but the team cares, the coaches care. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Well,
So
and I think the best way to for a team to respond and be a really good, really proud of being a defensive team, and you get the most out of your players, would be coming from the top down, right? So if a coach preaches that and rewards that and praises the defensive effort, then you probably will see more, right? As opposed to just get the guy that gets the goal. So now maybe a guy that is, you get possession or almost get possession, the guy blows his own because because he can cheat a little bit. Maybe he second guesses that because he understands the importance of playing the D zone.
yeah, yeah.